Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here at Michigan State, because I'm sure all of you are as well. My name is Alexis Hurst, and I go to Siena Heights University in Adrian, Michigan. And I vote because I think it's important to empower young people to make independent decisions, especially when it comes to voting. So I'm here, and I'm excited to introduce you to the speakers for our first session today, Sarah Reinhardt, Director of Special Projects, and Annetta Crisp, Press Secretary at the Michigan Department of State. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alexis, for that introduction. As Alexis said, my name is Sarah Reinhardt, and I'm Director of Special Projects at the Michigan Department of State. So I have the pleasure of working on a lot of our youth engagement initiatives, including supporting the Collegiate Student Advisory Task Force.
Good morning, and I'm Annetta Crisp, and I'm the Press Secretary with the Michigan Department of State. So our presentation today will walk you through some of the basics of Michigan elections. We'll cover important dates this election cycle and hopefully clarify some commonly misunderstood election topics. We have a lot to cover and we'd love to answer your questions. So we're hoping we're going to have some time at the end, but if we don't get to your question, please feel free to find me or Sarah throughout the day today, and we'd be happy to help you out with whatever you need. I believe our contact information is going to be at the end too, so feel free to email us outside of today's event if you need anything. So without further ado, let's dive in.
All right, so let's go over some important dates for you all to know for the November 8th election. So that is the statewide general election. A couple important dates here. The last day to register to vote online at michigan.gov/vote is October 24th. October 24th is the last day. After that day, it is the 14-day window prior to Election Day, where in order to register to vote, you have to visit your local clerk's office and you have to bring proof of residency. So we always encourage students to register to vote online and to register to vote online early. It's the easiest and the fastest way for you all to do it so that you don't have to go register in person. However, Michigan is the same day voter registration state. So if you don't register by that time, you still have up to and on election day to get registered just by visiting your local clerk's office. October 24th is also the recommended date to request an absentee ballot and return it by mail. So this is the recommended deadline. It is not the legal deadline. But the reason that we recommend this is because if you request a ballot to be received by mail or you send that ballot back, you might experience mailing delays. And as I hope you all know, your ballot has to be received by your local clerk by 8 p.m. for it to be counted. So even if you put it in the mail the day before and it's still in transit, it will not be counted if it's not received. So we recommend you mail it at least 2 weeks out. You can also vote early in person with an absentee ballot at your city or township clerk's office through 4 p.m. on November 7th. And we'll get into a few more of these deadlines later. You can return your signed absentee ballot by hand to a drop box or your local clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day. And remember, it has to be in that drop box or received by your local clerk by 8 p.m. for it to be counted. You can also register to vote in person at your city or township clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day. And remember, polls open on November 8th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
All right, so to register to vote, you have to be a US citizen. You can be 17 and a half years old, but you have to turn 18 on or before election day. You also have to be a Michigan resident at the time that you register, and a resident of your city or township for at least 30 days when you vote. You also can't be currently serving a sentence in jail or prison. So how do you register? If there are more than 14 days before election day, it's super easy. Just go online to michigan.gov/vote. And there is the online registration portal, which is, you're all tech savvy, you can figure out. Fairly simple, walks you through it. If there are more than 14 days, if you can also print out an application online and mail it to your clerk's office, and email applications are also accepted. As Sarah mentioned, we strongly encourage students to register early and online. It's the easiest way to get it done. 14 days out from the election, it's the best, quickest recommended way to make sure that you're good to go ahead of election day.
And one thing to note about the online versus printed forms, this is something that we've discovered working with younger and college age populations. So if you are registering to vote online, you need two things. You need your Michigan driver's license or ID number, a valid one. And you also need the last 4 digits of your social security number. A lot of students or young people may not know their social security number, may not carry around their social security card with them. So sometimes that can be a barrier for students to get registered. So an alternative to that then would be using the printable form. You can download the PDF and fill it out all on your computer. If you use the printable form, you only need one or the other. So you only need your Michigan driver's license or ID number or the last 4 digits of your social. So you can always print that out or fill it out on your computer and email it to your clerk, and that will work as well.
All right, so in Michigan, you can now register to vote on election day at your local clerk's office by 8 p.m. It's important to note that you have to go to your local clerk's office and can't do it at a polling place. Because you're registering, you'll want to bring something that shows that you live in the jurisdiction that you're registering in. And that typically your driver's license with your current address covers that. But you can also bring in something like a utility bill, bank statement, anything that has your name and current address on it will be accepted. And digital copies will be accepted as well. If you are registering to vote on election day or updating your address on election day, you can actually request an absentee ballot from your clerk right then and there, and they'll issue you a ballot on the spot. So you can fill it out before you go, and there you go. You voted for the day. You don't have to run to your polling place after you register on election day.
And something that's great for students to know, when we say digital copies are available, that means you can just pull up whatever you have on your phone. A lot of students have access to some sort of online portal for their university that they can click on that has financial aid documents, it has enrollment documents. All they're looking for is an official document that has your current address and your name on it. So if you can pull that up on your phone, even if it's in your student portal, something like that, that will suffice. I actually was working at the Allendale clerk's office with a bunch of students on election day. We're trying to get registered, and one person brought in an Amazon package as their proof of residency. Unfortunately, that's not a super official document. So I would not encourage that, but you should be able to find other proof of residency documents using your phone or whatever documents you have available pretty easily.
One important thing to know is that you have until 8 p.m. on election day to register. But if you show up getting close to 8 o'clock and there happens to be a line at your clerk's office, you'll want to stay in line because as long as you are in line by 8 p.m., you'll be allowed to vote even if it gets to be 8, whatever, after 8 o'clock. So throughout our presentation, we're going to be referencing this website. The Department of State houses all voter information on our website, michigan.gov/vote. You can find pretty much everything you need regarding registration and more on this site. It's your one-stop shop for elections. It's all here. It also has additional information like a sample ballot unique to your area, all your clerk information, where they're located, what their hours are, telephone numbers to reach them, and also where your local drop box is, which is important if you're voting absentee and are looking to turn it in via Dropbox.
All right, updating your address. That's another thing that you can do online at michigan.gov/vote. You must make sure your voter registration address is accurate and up to date before election day. So this is something that's highly applicable to students because you all move around an awful lot. From year to year, you might be at a different address. So make sure that your voter registration address is up to date. You can just do that online. It's super easy. But one thing to note when you do that is that it also changes the official address on record for your driver's license or ID. And there may be situations where if you have financial aid or scholarships that are dependent on location, you will definitely want to check with your financial aid office before changing to make sure that that doesn't impact it. But it is very easy to update it. And once you do, you'll receive a sticker in the mail sent to you that you can put on your driver's license or ID if you have one to show that you've updated your address. And another, hold on just a second.
It appears we have clicker issues.
I'll try scooting out. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Another thing that is highly applicable to students is this phrase, you can only vote once. And I know that sounds super obvious, but you'd be surprised how often we hear from students who live out of state, have their permanent home address out of state, and attend school in Michigan, or vice versa, that there's some confusion around where to vote and if you can vote in both your home state and your school state. And the answer, of course, is no, you can only vote once. But if you do know students who are out of state, or if one of you are a student who are from out of state attending school in Michigan, they can always update their voter registration to register in Michigan and vote here.
So how do you actually vote in Michigan? Well, you have a couple options. You can vote in person on election day. Polls are open between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. November 8th. It's important to note that you can't vote at just any polling place. You have to visit the designated polling place based on where you're registered. You can and should look up your polling place before you go, and we'll cover that in a second. When you show up to the polls, you'll be asked to show a photo ID when you vote in person. So it's important to remember to bring it with you. However, if you forget it or don't have one, you can still vote. Without a photo ID, a poll worker will ask you to sign an affidavit stating that you are not in possession of an ID. And once you do that and sign the affidavit, you will be issued a ballot as normal. Some acceptable forms of ID include your Michigan driver's license or state issued ID card. So if you have that, you're all set. But you can also bring your US passport, military ID with a photo, your student ID with a photo from a high school or accredited institution of higher learning, a tribal identification card with a photo. And if your photo ID doesn't need to have your address on it, and the name of your photo ID can be shorter than your legal name. So if your name is William, but you go by Bill and that's what's on your ID, that will be accepted as well.
Great. And one important distinction about this photo ID requirement, it is requested but not mandatory. I want to point out there is a federal law that does require first-time voters to show proof of residency when they vote for the first time if they have registered online. So when you register online, you put in your social or the last 4 digits of your social, you put in your Michigan driver's license or ID. But when you go to the polls, you'll be prompted for an ID, and that usually will serve as your proof of residency for first-time voters. However, if you or students that you're talking to do not have a photo ID, or they forget their photo ID and don't have an alternate proof of residency, you will be issued a provisional ballot. And from Election Day onward, you will have 6 days to contact your local clerk, provide proof of residency, and then your ballot will be counted as normal. And remember, when we talk about proof of residency, you can pull it up on your phone. A digital copy will work. So it should be pretty easy to find that for you.
Okay, so on michigan.gov/vote, you can find your polling place there. Just find the navigation menu and it'll ask for your name and address. And we recommend that everybody look up their polling place before they head out to vote on election day. Often polling places will change due to unforeseen circumstances. And especially with the redistricting process, a lot of people have found that their polling place might have changed because of that. So we do recommend that you double check before you head to the polls on election day. And just to know, the polling place, it may not necessarily be your clerk's office. It could be a public space like a school or a church. Those are the most common places that conduct elections.
And I just want to emphasize how important this is, looking up your polling place before you go, because a lot of you may have experienced this in person. Often when you go to your polling place, often when you go to your clerk's office in a campus town on election day, what do you run into? Lines, right? Long lines. You could be waiting in line for same day registration for like an hour. And so what our office does whenever we hear that this happens, we go work the line, try to make sure that people are in the right place. We'll come across people who've been standing in line for an hour, 2 hours, ask them to look up where their polling place is or their clerk's office, and they find out they're in the wrong place. So don't let that happen to you. Help out your friends, help out the people you talk to, look it up before you go.
Okay, so when you arrive to vote at your polling place, who might you run into? So the most common people that you'll see there are election workers, election inspectors. They're paid and trained government workers, commonly called poll workers or election workers, and they are generally there to assist voters, answer questions, and make sure that everything is running smoothly.
Do we have anyone here who's an election inspector? Raise your hand.
Woohoo!
Yay. Thank you so much.
You might also see the chairperson for the polling place. They are the lead election inspector and they manage the polling place and all the other election workers. So they're kind of like the person, running the show. And your local clerk might be in. They are the local government official in charge of running elections in your city or township. All election inspectors and chairpersons report to the local clerk. So they are the head boss in charge.
Do we have any clerks here with us today? I saw that there were a couple signed up. All right. I know you're out there somewhere.
They're a little busy right now, Sarah.
That's true.
Okay. Hot topic of late, you might also see election challengers or poll watchers when you arrive at the polls. So election challengers are credentialed, often appointed, and can issue challenges. And poll watchers are generally members of the public who want to observe the voting process. Neither is allowed to speak to voters or disrupt the voting process in any way. We'll go over these in more detail in a second, but the important takeaway here is that they are in the mix as a normal part of the election process, and they're there to witness the integrity of the election. So here's some helpful do's and don'ts for voting in person. Feel free to take a picture if you guys want.
This handout's also available online on our website. So if you don't get a picture, you can find it.
Yeah, so just a couple highlights. As we mentioned, check your registration and find your polling place at michigan.gov/vote. Bring a photo ID with you. If you don't have one or forget, you can still sign the affidavit and vote. Don't speak to anyone who says they are a poll watcher or challenger because they're not allowed to speak to voters. And also, as we mentioned with same day registration, don't leave the polling place without voting. Even if you are in line at 8 o'clock and it gets to be after 8, stay in line because you will be allowed to vote before you leave. So don't give up.
All right. Michigan is a no reason absentee voting state. And that means that every single registered voter in the state of Michigan can request an absentee voter ballot for any reason or no reason at all. Thanks. All right. And apply for an absentee ballot online, or you can find this printable form and fill it out. So one thing to note is that there's this box right here that says, I want to vote absentee in all elections. So that's called the permanent absentee voter list. A lot of people, when they check that box, think, oh, great, I'm going to get an absentee ballot every election going forward. That's not what that means. That means that you will get an absentee ballot application every election going forward. So you'll have an application sent to you, you can fill it out and request your absentee ballot. That also means though, if you check that box and you receive an application, you don't have to vote absentee if you don't want to. It's just a courtesy for you to receive one every election. So some deadlines for you to remember about absentee ballots. There's a couple different deadlines. Gets a little complicated. So if anyone has any questions on this, feel free to raise your hand. So the first thing to remember, you have to request an absentee ballot be mailed to you by 5 p.m. the Friday before Election Day. So that's for it to be mailed to you. Now, we don't really recommend that you wait until Friday before the election at 5 p.m. to request it be mailed to you because you might encounter mailing delays. So you might want to request that a little earlier, but this is that legal deadline that I was talking about earlier. So the next deadline you'll want to know is you can still request an absentee ballot in person at your local clerk's office if you are a currently registered voter up to 4 p.m. the day before Election Day. And then finally, if you are not currently a registered voter in the state of Michigan, or if you're not currently registered at your current address, you can visit your local clerk's office on Election Day by 8 p.m. to request an absentee ballot. So with these last two here, both instances, when you're issued the absentee ballot, you have to vote it right there in your clerk's office and hand it back, and then you're done.
One thing I just want to emphasize is that there's an absentee ballot application and an absentee ballot, and you have to do both in order to vote absentee. So if you want to make the 5 p.m. deadline before Election Day and you're mailing your absentee ballot application that day, you might not have enough time to receive your absentee ballot and vote it before 8 p.m. on Election Day.
Great flag. All right, how can you return your absentee ballot? Remember, it has to be received by your clerk or in your clerk's drop box by 8 p.m. So by mail, recommended no later than 2 weeks before Election Day, at a designated drop box by 8 p.m. on Election Day, or at your local clerk's office by 8 p.m. on Election Day. And one thing about the drop boxes that we encounter frequently with students is that they have the misimpression that they're like post office box where you can put it in any one and it'll get to your clerk. That's not the case. Each clerk has a designated drop box. And if they receive an absentee ballot that's meant for another clerk, they'll try to get it to that clerk. But if they receive it at 7:50 p.m. on Election Day, chances are they probably won't have time to get it to your intended clerk. So you'll want to make sure that you find your clerk's drop box and use that one.
And you can find your local drop box at michigan.gov/vote. You can input your address and it'll tell you which one you should be using.
And absentee ballots for November 8th are available now. Who can help you fill out your absentee ballot? So here's a list of people that can help you fill it out. Who can return your absentee ballot? Only by request. A member of your same household. So that means your roommate. If you live in a dorm and you have a roommate, that person can return your absentee ballot for you. A member of your immediate family, a professional mail carrier while they're in the course of their official duties, or deputized election official. So one question that we get a lot, can I host an event where people come in, complete their absentee ballot, and then I collect them and take them to a drop box for them? I'm seeing heads shaking. Yeah, the answer is no. That's a really nice thing to think about doing, to take people's absentee ballots back for them, but that is a crime in Michigan. That is an election crime. So you cannot do that. Unless you are on this list of people, you cannot take someone else's ballot back for them. All right, a few voting absentees, do's and don'ts. Remember to sign your return envelope. Remember to mail it back with enough time. Remember, we recommend 2 weeks. You can track the status of your ballot at michigan.gov/vote. And remember, don't ask anyone to deliver your ballot for you unless they are an immediate family member or a member of your household or on that list we just looked at, because they might get prosecuted with a felony.
All right, so we'd like to go over a few election rights that you have in Michigan, a couple highlights. As we've already mentioned, when casting a ballot on Election Day, you'll be prompted to show a photo ID, but if you don't have one with you, you can complete the affidavit stating that you do not have one and you will still be allowed to vote. Every registered voter in Michigan has the right to request an absentee ballot to vote from home. They can also vote early or vote by mail. Eligible Michigan residents have the right to vote up to and on 8 p.m. on Election Day. And Michigan voters have the right to accessible polling places and to utilize voter assist terminals, or VATS, for assistance casting a ballot. VATs are ballot marking devices. They're available to all voters with special accommodations for hearing, visual, physical, and other disabilities. If you would like to use a VAT to cast a ballot, when you arrive at your polling place, notify an election inspector when you get there, and they'll walk you through the steps to do that.
And one more note about voter accessibility that has to do with folks with limited English proficiency. Language access is super important at the Department of State. Folks who have limited English proficiency have the right to bring an interpreter or a translator with them to the polls to help translate their ballot for them. There's a few restrictions there. They can't be that person's employer. They can't be an agent of their union. But you can learn more about that at michigan.gov/vote. All right, what's the difference? Poll watcher, poll challenger. So a poll watcher is an election observer. Really anyone can be a poll watcher. You can go into your local polling place. You can go into an absent voter counting board at the discretion of the clerk, and you can observe elections. But poll watchers have more limited rights to observe than poll challengers. So a poll challenger is a credentialed election observer. They're usually credentialed by either a political party, special interest group, or an incorporated organization. And they have the right to actually challenge ballots. So let's go to the next slide. Of course. Oh, I apologize.
We're grabbing one for you.
Okay. Hello.
Great. You may use it at the mark. Please take a tab off before you insert your ballot. No, with all the top of your ballot before you insert your ballot. Yeah, take the top
Top of your ballot.
off.
Oh, I see.
You have to tear the top off of your ballot before you enter it into the tabulator. Is that what you're asking about?
No, it on the mark. In the voting machine.
Yeah. Why don't you and I connect after our
Yeah,
presentation today, and I can help you with that question. So election challengers, what can they challenge? These are the things that they are legally allowed to challenge: a voter's eligibility to cast a ballot, the actions of an election inspector, and an absent voter at the polls. So someone who comes to a polling place and has already cast an absentee ballot, and they have to have good reason to do so legally. What is good reason? Usually it's based on research about the voter that's done beforehand, but it cannot be for the purpose of delaying the voting process. It cannot be based on the person's race or appearance or based on their political affiliation. And these are just some additional information about some of the rights and duties of challengers. There's actually a full document that walks through this. It's super interesting read. You can find it at michigan.gov/vote.
Okay, so at the polls, under no circumstances is it okay for anyone at the polls to be made to feel intimidated casting their ballot. Some examples of potential intimidation can include people who aren't poll workers asking for your personal information, photographing or videotaping voters. It is possible for clerks to give permission for certain people to film during the polls being open. It's typically, like media crews, news crews, things like that, but they are restricted to public areas only, and they cannot actually, film you voting or anything like that. And they are made to be aware of that before they do that. Disseminating or disseminating false or misleading election information, blocking any access to anything at the polls, like the door or voting machines, or directly questioning voters. If you ever encounter voter intimidation at the polls, the first thing you can do is alert the election workers there immediately. They are often the best people to be able to handle that kind of a situation. If you ever feel that there is a great need, you can always contact local law enforcement to intervene if necessary. And also these voter protection hotlines are available to assist you in navigating what you should do if you encounter voter intimidation.
And that 866 our vote number is a great number to know, as well as these other non-English election protection hotlines. So that election protection hotline is actually open now. So if you have issues or questions about your absentee ballot, you can call them right now and they'll be able to assist you. Our office is in very close contact with election protection. So if there are any issues that they report to us that need to be escalated or handled by our office, we can do so immediately. So it's a really great number to know if you encounter any problems. All right. I think that might be all the time we have. I do want to briefly mention this. You can report misinformation to our email address here. We'll be talking more about misinformation at the CSATF presentation later today. All right. So briefly, we have a few minutes left. Are there any questions from anyone about anything that we've gone over today? In the back? Ma'am? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I've worked elections when I'm not running. And one of the things I don't think I saw is that nobody can bring campaign materials within that 100 feet outdoors list. I've run into people who thought that they'd been in prison and they can't vote. Once they're out, they can. And a curiosity question, I did look online at your website. What's the percentage of registered voters out of all of those who could be registered? I understand it's pretty high in Michigan because you make it so easy for people to do that.
Yeah, some great points there. So your first point about electioneering, that's accurate. There's a 100-foot rule in Michigan. So within 100 feet of a polling place, you cannot wear campaign-related materials for someone who's on the ballot or a proposal on the ballot or an initiative on the ballot. You cannot bring election-related materials. You cannot hand out flyers or anything like that. So that's a really important rule to note. If you see somebody doing that, you can report it to a poll worker inside, or you can call that election protection hotline and report it. Your second point about returning citizens, that's entirely accurate. There's a lot of confusion surrounding that. If you are not currently serving a sentence in Michigan, you are able to vote. So again, if you're not currently serving a sentence, so that means if you have a felony conviction, but you're not serving a sentence, if you are awaiting sentencing, you still have the right to vote in Michigan. And your final point there, Annetta, do you know the number of registered voters in our state?
Not off the top of my head, but I can find it.
Yeah, we'll find out that number for you. I know I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't. But you're right, it is a really high percentage. And a big reason for that is because we have automatic voter registration when people apply for their driver's license. So it's really shot up our numbers recently. And sorry, I just have one more fact to share. The College Task Force recently had a presentation from the Circle program out of Tufts University. And right now, Michigan is the #1 state in the country, and it's not even close, for increase in youth voter registration from this time during the midterm last year. It's like huge, yeah. So that's all we have time for. Thank you, everyone. And if anyone has any more questions, find us after this. We're happy to help.
Thank you guys so much, Sarah and Annetta, for all the helpful information. It's critical that every student in this state is really aware of the voting opportunities and all this voting information so that they can share it along their social networks and across their campuses. My name is Allie Deutsch, and I'm a student at Northern Michigan University. And the reason why I vote is because I believe we have to take every avenue and opportunity that we have to make change. Next up, we are going to be